Some of these people died in 1918, perhaps from the flu. Did you know flu was often fatal in those days? Today we have medicines and flu shots that can keep us out of danger. But in 1918, these medicines didn't exist. And when a worldwide influenza epidemic struck, an estimated 30 million people died. And that wasn't the only time a disease killed huge numbers of people. Throughout history, diseases, epidemic diseases, have devastated entire cultures, as was the case in the 14th century. Sometime around the year 1350, farmers in Europe began to abandon their farms, leaving them to ruin. In some churches, priests refused to perform their clerical duties. People fled cities, villages, and towns, leaving their children behind. Everywhere, people were running from a strange and horrible illness, bubonic plague, the Black Death as it came to be known, because of its symptoms. Victims suffered from black swellings in the armpits and groin, boils and continuous fever. Swellings oozed blood and pus. Victims died in agony. And the plague spread throughout Europe like fire. Agnolo de Tura, a survivor of the plague, described the catastrophe he witnessed.
I do not know where to begin describing its relentless cruelty. Almost everyone who witnessed it seemed stupefied by grief. I buried 5 of my children with my own hands. Nobody wept for the dead, since each was awaiting death, and so many died that everyone thought that the end of the world had come.
For most of those who caught the bubonic plague, the end of the world did come, usually within 5 days. And what caused this mysterious and horrible death? A flea. A rat and a flea, actually, because both carried the plague bacteria and transmitted it to humans. To find out just how, we have to leave Europe and go to East Asia. For years, Mongol horsemen had waged war against the Chinese. But in the invasion of 1331, the Mongols brought not only war, but disease as well. Yersinia pestis, the plague bacterium carried by infected rats hiding in food supplies. The rats had their own traveling partners, fleas. And so it starts. A flea bites a diseased rat. The flea then carries the disease to the next victim it bites, whether rat or person. The fleas spread the disease with frightening speed. How destructive was bubonic plague in China? It's hard to imagine, but in the 1300s, about 35 million people died there, most from this disease. But China and Europe are separated by great distances, deserts, mountains, and plains. How did an epidemic in China reach Europe?